Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered Truth. I'm your host, Eric Smith. I'm here with my partner in crime, James. And I hope everybody had a fantastic Labor Day. That's one of the reasons why we delayed this podcast today. I know we kind of been Tuesday, Wednesday juggling it around, but give everybody time to hang out with the family and everything. So I hope everybody enjoyed that, had a good time. How was your Labor Day, James?
Labor Day was good. Got to do some training and got to break in a new rifle of mine, so that was fun. I would say I got to rest, but didn't really rest very much. Just used the time to do other stuff, and but I think that winds us down for the I guess the fair weather or the warm weather holidays. And now, what do we got coming up next? Halloween.
Yeah, I guess Halloween. So I don't know if we get to do it this year or not. We'll have to refer to the CDC, I guess, and see if the kids are allowed to go get candy.
Yeah, I saw something about that as well. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later.
We can probably get that, so that'd be another good episode for the week. So let's get after it, man. We got a bunch of stuff to cover today. Already got several people watching, so let's get to it, bud.
All right. So first thing I want to do is we'll give a shout out to the sponsors. New sponsor this week, All Weather Construction. You'll see that coming up on the screen here, guys. Home renovations, any kind of home improvement projects. Give Stephen a call over at All Weather Construction. That's 470-519-6988. You'll see that banner running at the bottom of the screen here for a few minutes. Again, that's Stephen over at All Weather Construction. That's 470-519-6988. Those guys have been real good to us, putting in some sponsorship for us for the next few weeks. And great guys, do great work. And I think you guys should check them out if you have any home improvement needs.
Yep, definitely. Don't let the fact that he's in Georgia discourage you. If you happen to be in a different state, I believe he just got back from doing a big job in Montana. So if job and everything meets the criteria, anything's possible. So give him a shout.
Yeah. So also, guys, we got Peach State Printing in Hiram, Georgia. They did some of the artwork you see back here on the banner that's over my head. So that's Peach State Printing in Hiram. They do pretty much everything. It's screen printing, promotional items, you name it. They do it all. So even vehicle wrap. So check out Jason and the folks over there for any of your printing needs. That's 770-439-0335, and you can catch them at peachstateprinting.com. And then again, as always, we'll give a shout out to North Cobb Spine and Nerve for a lot of their generous donations they gave us, helping with some of the backdrop and the set that we have here in both studios. So North Cobb Spine and Nerve for any of your chiropractic or physical medicine needs. You can catch them at northcobbspine.com. That web address is northcobbspine.com. So if you need to go get your back cracked or something like that, we'll be sure and reach out to them.
Yep. So, man, we got a ton of stuff to cover this week. As we posted on the website, we're going to kind of do plenty of double standards, I guess, floating around. We've seen a lot of it lately in the media, but there's just been the past week, I think we've got 6 or so examples that we've seen in the media. And one of the other things we're going to cover today is a little bit of issues with mail-in voting, the absentee ballots, and the confusion that it may cause in the election. So we'll see if Facebook allows this podcast to be advertised this week. So we'll hit a little bit on why we were not allowed to advertise our podcast last week towards the end if we have time. But for now, let's just kind of get into it. So for those of everybody knows, I'm not going to say for those of y'all that don't know, everybody knows that mail-in ballots and absentee ballots in this is a big push by certain sectors of the government and certain political parties and things like that. And everybody talks about how super safe it is, how you can't commit fraud. I even brought up on one of our podcasts how I live in a different county from my old county now and actually received an absentee ballot for a county I don't even live in anymore. I'm not even registered to vote there, and I could easily send them my ballot. Well, lo and behold, here we have in Georgia. I'm going to call up the news article and then let you kind of speak on it, James, and tell everybody what's going on. I think 1,000 or 1,100 voters total is what they're saying, double voted in the Georgia primary, which anybody knows in primary elections, especially when it comes to local elections, that's a huge problem. This is from the AJC. So, again, we don't always just use Fox News, but here's an example of some problems. So I'd like to hear your opinion on it, James.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing you didn't send in that double. You didn't double vote then, huh?
Yeah, they're looking at charging all these people with felony. I didn't even realize it was a felony in Georgia, but it should be. So I'm no problems with the law, but that's exactly why you don't do it. You there?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Sorry, it jacked up, but yeah, that's why we don't do it. When we try to share the screen again, it didn't work. Let's go back to it, and sorry about that, everybody. We're going to share this again. There we go. We're good. So here you go. AJC.com talking about how the double voting and whatnot happened. It's basically where the absentee ballots were voted or sent in, and then they showed up at polling places on election days. And Brad Raffensperger, who is our Secretary of State, said that he is planning and looking into prosecuting these people. It's kind of funny because a couple news articles that I read said that there was no malicious intent behind any of these, but I don't know how there can't be. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I imagine part of the excuse that you're going to hear from some of the folks, and it could be a legitimate excuse. So I don't want to label, incorrectly label someone a criminal in this case. But part of the excuse that you'll probably hear is that, well, and I know there's going to be some backlash because they're going to try to use Trump's words against him from earlier this week, or I guess that was last week. By saying that, send in your absentee ballot and then just go vote as well. And it should get caught if there's a double situation where it double votes. But ultimately, I think it's the citizens' obligation to make sure that they do not double vote in this fashion. So I can definitely see where there's going to be certain people that may traditionally use an absentee ballot, and they cast their ballot. They didn't know if the ballot was counted, so they went ahead and did the in-person voting. However, I think they're going to be. It'll be pretty easy for them to tell here in Georgia, at least, because it's a smaller amount, not as large as what would be in a national election. So I think with the amount of ballots that they'll be counting, I think it'll be a lot easier for them to try to decipher people's malicious intent off of that. If there was just straight up blatant malicious double voting, or if there was actually true accidental causes here. But this will be a good one for us to keep up with, because this will tell you a lot over the next month or so as we lead into the election about how the mail-in process works. And I'll let you speak on it. I know you're going to get to it in just a moment, but there's a lot of video servicing of, USPS employees dumping, containers and containers and containers of mail. There's, we've had plenty of documented evidence. And I think this even is backed up by some Democrats in the past, in the recent past, as far as not trusting the USPS for mail-in voting and actually being very vocal about that. And now it seems to be a little bit of a, I guess you could call it a double standard, switching of the guard there to say that mail-in ballots are safe and whatnot. So what do you think?
I just see where it can cause problems, because there's obviously with paper versus electronic, you're going to have lead times, right? So, you can mail in your ballot, and I out of ignorance, I don't remember what the day is. I know it's earlier before the actual election date they're supposed to be postmarked by. And if anybody does know and comment, please do that, what the date is supposed to be marked is. But even if you have it in before that date, there's going to be a lead time, like we said. And what kind of system is in place to prevent somebody from sending in an absentee ballot and then voting again? I don't want a Republican double voting just as much as I don't want a Democrat or an independent double voting, because as the article in the AJC said, it waters down the actual voter pool, waters down what's really going on. And, for many reasons, it's not right. And, you're seeing all these things where, they're like, oh, it's not safe to vote in person. But then again, the double standard to kind of stay on topic with it. Not safe to vote in person, but we can go protest the police, in Portland for 100 days straight. RJ, who's one of our most loyal listeners, and actually already commented, he's, been stuck in protest for going on 100 days straight right now. But these same people are telling us it's not safe to vote in person. So I think it absolutely, it could be fraught with fraud, and it's going to cause huge issues. There was actually, if you research the article, I'll link it here in a second, where in the primary elections, absentee ballots are actually marked by party. You can tell based on the serial number for them that, if it's a conservative ballot or...
I think they're literally marked with an R or a D.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Then, on the flip side, and I'm not going to say Trump supporters wouldn't do it. A hard right-wing guy wouldn't throw away Democratic ballots. Absolutely that could happen. All the more reason why it's not okay for that to be that way. And it's bad. There's got to be a better system. I mean, man, it's 2020. What are we doing? We waste millions upon millions of tax dollars. There's got to be a better way to do it than snail mail, man. It's just, I don't like it. It's going to cause issues. And you've already seen all the videos. Everybody's seen it with Hillary saying, oh, don't concede the elections. They've even said, oh, well, we know Trump's going to win the electronic voting, but after we do the mail-ins, Biden's going to win. That's a problem. I mean, they've said it out loud. So if you don't think something's possibly happened, you're wrong.
Yeah, well, the other thing is to think about if you think the powers that be that control this situation are so concerned about your actual safety, your individual safety so much, and your health and well-being, that's the reason they want you to do a mail-in vote and not go in person. I mean, let's just be completely honest. I don't think the people that are in charge of this system really care if you live or die today. So
Correct.
Nor do they even know if you're alive or dead. So if the excuse is that, well, we're doing it, I mean, just at least come out and say we're wanting mail-in voting because we think it's going to sway one way or the other.
Right.
But coming out and trying to tell the public that you're doing it to try to protect them is just not going to. That's just not going to go anymore. I think that the American public is smart enough to understand now, especially since you fast forward from let's flatten the curve for 15 days. What day? We're in 100 and something day. I don't even know where we're at anymore.
Maybe I'm giving up.
200 days, over half the year. So
Yep.
no. Listen, if they're telling you 15 days to flatten the curve, and we flatten the curve, and then they still have all the restrictions, they're probably not concerned about your health as far as the mail-in voting goes. They're just doing it because they expect a certain outcome with mail-in voting versus the in-person system.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. RJ commented, he's obviously listening live. So, hey, RJ again, said, yeah, now we're on fire. Seems like people are just starting fires. My house is safe, but I have many friends that are in the path of the fire. That my favorite spots are just burn up. That sucks. I know he does a lot of outdoor stuff. And if you guys will YouTube City of Portland housing Antifa, I can't link it because we'll get banned. I already got banned on our normal page. Y'all see why it's been 100 days of sustained attacks on the city. It's unbelievable. But go look up City of Portland houses Rose City Antifa. It'll blow your minds. So, again, I'm not even going to link it because we'll get the video banned. So, RJ, stay safe out there, buddy. I saw Montana's on fire. California's on fire. Oregon. It's a crazy world out here right now, man.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as the voting thing goes, I mean, anytime you have the physical means of handling the votes like that, I mean, there's obvious contamination going to happen. And we've already seen it in the past. I mean, with lost ballots being discovered a year later, ballots being transferred to holding facilities, and then they just discover them at some point. There had to be a point where somebody actually took them to this holding facility. And what were they doing? Because, these kind of ballots are usually counted upon receipt. And so I don't know why you would be stockpiling them anywhere. So there's just way too much evidence. And I think there's a lot of actual studies that were done, if I'm not mistaken. There's some actual, some research groups have done studies on this to prove that mail-in voting has the potential for extreme fraud. And like I said, I think there was a lot of Democrat. Was Jimmy Carter one of the? It seemed like I read an article the other day, or I just heard it brought back up, and I know I had seen or heard of it before. There was a couple of particular Democrats that had posed some legislation at one point over the last couple of administrations where they were completely against mail-in voting.
Yep, you nailed it. I'm actually about to share the article and link for everybody, so people know we're not talking out of our butt. Yes, Jimmy Carter is absolutely one of those ones that said, he's a Democrat, said that, that here you go. It's one of the biggest sources of potential voter fraud. Anybody that has common sense knows this is absolutely true. And again, I'm linking it in the comments so you guys can go research it on your own. But yes, it's obvious. I mean, it's just there's so much stuff. You hit on a bunch of things. How long are they sitting in the facilities for? Do people want to submit your ballots or anything like that? And you can't tell me in 2020, James, that you can't send me something in the mail like, okay, you want to do mail-in voting. Got it. With a QR code, right? The little barcode things we see everywhere to where, I do my mail-in ballot or however I do it, and I can't scan it with my phone to submit it electronically safely that way with my copy of my driver's license. In Georgia, we have those codes on the back of our driver's licenses now. So not only could you take me off the roster as voting, Now my ballot's submitted instantly. The idea that we still do mail-in voting, man, it's asinine. I'm all about opening up the sports stadiums to voting like we've done here in Atlanta. I think Atlanta kind of led the way on that. They opened up State Farm Arena to be a large voting center. Do it. Dude, make every high school stadium a voting place, polling place at this point. Middle school tracks. Let's do it. And I'm all for it. And you got Christina, postal worker here. Not to talk bad about my employer, but I wouldn't even send cash through the mail. Why should we send in votes that elect the most important person in our country, right? And can change history. That's valid. So there's too much stuff that can go wrong. All of us have mailed stuff off. All of us have gotten stuff lost. And we're going to trust that there's going to be I'm not going to say 100%, but near perfect success rate to get these ballots in. There's no way.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear the argument from the other side of why we don't as far as let's just say that we restricted it to in-person voting. So why is that like default? Why does the left seem to defaultly think that's in the favor of Republicans?
I've never been able to figure that out. It's the same thing with voter ID. I mean, we could maybe do a whole topic on that. Why it's so bad you have to show a valid driver's license or valid form of identification to get your name taken off the voter registry for that election. It's beyond me, man.
I'll tell you. I'll go ahead and tell you right now.
So dead people can vote.
Well, this is gonna move us into our next topic because Democrats love criminals.
Yes, let's go ahead and hit right on that topic.
Yeah, Democrats, man, they love them some criminals, especially rapists.
Oh, man, especially
rapists. So, let's move right into this one.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. So this week, Kamala Harris, I'm going to share the story for you right now, and then I'll link it. Again, Kamala Harris told Jacob Blake that she was proud of him. Jacob Blake had made some comments to Kamala Harris that he was proud of her for, running with Biden and all this other stuff. And she said, I'm proud of you too. Man, could you imagine? And why is it not sharing today? I'm going to share it again. Could you imagine
where does the embracement come from for Joe Biden? He has got to be the whitest white old man elitist of anyone that's ever ran for president. Where is the attraction from the left for Joe Biden? I mean, we obviously know there's no attraction for him.
Correct.
Okay, this is all about trying to get someone else into the office, not Joe Biden. But I mean, let's just be for real. If you sit down one-on-one with these people, I would love to hear someone who supports Joe Biden give me any kind of real stance on something that's founded or grounded in policy or in his future outlook or anything like that. I would love to hear someone argue that. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. And then, let's hit Harris on this quote. So for all my female listeners out there, let me know how this makes you feel. I want to hear it in the comments. Harris called the meeting with Jacob Blake really wonderful. I mean, they're an incredible family, and they've endured, and they do it with such dignity and grace. And, they're carrying the weight of a lot of voices on their shoulders. As a father to a daughter, that comment enrages me. What voices are we talking about here? The voices of the criminals? Because I'm sorry, what about the voices of the abused? What about the voices of the raped?
Yeah.
Why aren't we talking about them? Oh, you didn't when we were trying to, nominate a Supreme Court justice. We're giving them all the credibility in the world, and these were cases that happened back in the 70s. And now suddenly, because it doesn't fit the narrative, we're not going to talk about those female voices. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, it looked like today, from what I read, you had some people on the left, and even some of these people running for office. They seem to have woken up today and started posting things that were more in support of ending a lot of the violence or not being, let's be in control of ourselves, not loot, not pillage, and basically ravage, the land front. And it's funny that they're just now seeing that this is something that the general public does not support. The lawlessness, burning buildings and burning down businesses and the violence that's on the street right now. And you would think that if you watch the media, you would think they just learned this last night with all of the things and articles and posts and tweets and whatnot that's come out today condemning violence. And I think it's a little bit too late. We're very aware of their stance.
Yep.
Kamala Harris really gives us, there's no going back on this one. You can tell me what you think on this. I don't see how you go back on this. Jacob Blake still is going to have to go to court and go to trial at some point for this rape case. And you can't just say because he had another altercation with law enforcement that he gets a freebie on this one. I mean, there is a victim of his out there watching all of this happen, and they watched someone that is running for one of the highest offices in the land, being the vice presidential candidate, come out and say that she is proud of him. I don't think you ever lived that down, and that right there might have been the nail in the coffin that they needed to go ahead and seal the whole deal for the Republicans.
Absolutely. And Stephen, so again, hey, Stephen from All Weather Construction, shout out. Joe Biden can kick rocks. Absolutely. Christina, and I want to hit on this comment by Don Lemon of where the mentality really is, what really matters to these people. Christina, she comes out saying she believes his accusers, believes her own soon-to-be president in her eyes as accusers, and then accepts being his vice president as a woman. That's got to be a slap in the face to women out there everywhere. I know my wife's furious about it. She thinks it's disgusting. And then, she did, let's not forget that she called Joe Biden a racist, but suddenly he's not a racist anymore. So let's hit on your point, James. I'm glad you brought it up. So you have suddenly seen the past week or so where you're seeing Joe Biden condemning riots. He's now condemning the mask mandate, all these things where he's flip-flopping his stances, because this is why it is right here. And I hope all of y'all that are independents, moderates, that are maybe undecided voters pay attention to this part. CNN's Don Lemon comes out and says, Kenosha violence hurts Democrats. The rioting has to stop. James, not because people are dying, not because people in those communities are getting hurt, not because people in those low-income communities are losing their business. No. Not because the police are getting hurt. No. Not that. No. Oh, it's showing up in the polling. It's showing up in focus groups. They literally, you had a reporter, let's do that in quotes because I don't even really think he counts, because he said white men are the problem in America, but yet he's, his boyfriend is a white dude. There you go. But this is what they're seeing, and it's absolute facts. People are sick of it, man. You can go and research all the other riots and stuff like that have happened in the past, and you're gonna see where the opposing party almost always wins when the riots are going on. So it's going to be the same for Donald Trump, in my opinion. You asked me my opinion on it a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I think Donald Trump at this point is going to win by 10 points if it keeps on. Your thoughts?
Democrats love some criminals.
They do. It's sad.
They love some criminals, and they do get a certain amount of this United States population to agree with them. Although I think the media blows and exaggerates that number way out of proportion. I think it's a very, very small, minute number of people that would support any of the lawlessness that's going on at this point, just because it seems to be founded in no real stance and shooting for no real outcome.
Yeah, I think
I still haven't seen a list of legislation that's being called for. I haven't seen an organizer or a spokesperson or a head for any of these groups step up, because there isn't one, right? I mean, we know that this is a rogue group that's hijacked actual protesters who, for whatever reason, had, their own convictions, and whether they're justified or not, and a lot of them may be justified, but these, in many cases, you do have good people that are out protesting what they believe is the right thing, and it's been completely hijacked. And there isn't going to be someone that comes out and says, "Hey, I'm the head of this group. I'm the head of this group. We want to negotiate some kind of deal. We want to start pushing legislation in this direction," because all the laws are already on the books. Okay, racism's already illegal. So anyone that thinks that anything that's going on in the streets right now has anything to do with equality anymore, it's just they're living it on another planet. It never was about equality. It was a movement that started for a few weeks. It was hijacked by a couple of rogue radical groups. And these radical groups are pushing us more and more and more towards the violence that we see already. I think the violence we're going to continue to see. And I think the intensity of the violence is going to pick up. And that's going to lead us into our next topic as well.
Yep. So I want to show this video since we're talking about Jacob Blake, I want to show everybody a video since over and over again, why the police have to shoot the man in the back. She's proud of Jacob Blake and all this other stuff. And the police reacted the way they did for a certain reason. So let's share a video real quick. We shared it on our page. Again, I want to be sure everybody gets to see it because Facebook has a way of not allowing certain things to go through. This is an instructor in another state. I believe somebody said it was Illinois or Indiana, something like that. We'll go ahead and share him. Oh, and now, look, the video's having trouble playing. I wonder why that is. I had that same issue earlier. So, case in point on this one is everybody wanted to know why the police officer shot Jacob Blake in the back, right? Later on in this video, the instructor actually asked the people, hey, do you think you guys would have time to give verbal commands to recognize what's going on? Oh, yeah, I can do it. And then he turns around before they can even say one word, turns around and shoots. The media won't show stuff like this. Why? Because it doesn't fit their narrative. And that's the problem. You don't have any true reporting. You don't have anybody actually coming to a conclusion, because how many times have we said it on this podcast, James, that they just have to get it fast and first. They don't have to get it right.
Yeah.
And that incites violence and incites all this other stuff going on. And, like you said, it brings us to our next topic. I want everybody that's got any, their liberal friends, or even people that aren't liberals, cop-hating friends, wondering why the police officer shot the man in the back. Please show them that video. I'll link it to you in the comments. So, James, go ahead with the next topic, bud.
Yeah, so articles that were released this morning, some of them from yesterday, probably about midday yesterday through today, is a lot of the news organizations are at least starting to, and this is, at least some positive information in one way, except what they're reporting on isn't so positive. It says leftist groups, in some cases leftist radical groups, preparing for violent unrest if Biden loses. So for anyone that, when I said that if that was a news flash for you, or that was something that has never crossed your mind, then you need to become a little more aware of exactly the stage that's been set outside ever since, not just COVID, we'll say ever since probably Donald Trump came down the escalator and decided to run for the presidential seat. Left preps for violent unrest if Biden loses. So there is a lot to unbox here in this statement, and I think for most of the people that's watching this podcast, if you've made it this far, you're probably well aware that this entire sequence of events that's happened since the George Floyd case has not been about, like we said earlier, it hasn't been about promoting any kind of equality or promoting awareness for any kind of injustice that was done. This has all been a stage that's been prepped for violent unrest if Biden loses the election, which I feel like he's going to lose in a landslide if we even get to the election and this doesn't happen first. But I want to get your thoughts before we delve into just how violent this may get and what this actually may lead to. But prepping for violent unrest if Biden loses is a very concerning topic, especially when you're starting to see it published in mainstream media.
Yeah. So, and again, I linked that up. Breitbart was one of the ones that reported that today. So let's remember what happened when Trump lost, when Trump won the first time, right? We had some stuff going on. I believe Portland was the one that was, RJ, that was famous for the girls screaming in the streets and all the violent protests and stuff we had that time. You could go ahead, just my opinion, former public safety, man, you can multiply that by 100, by 1,000. I think that's what you're going to see, any kind of major city. I think you're going to see these extremist groups, your Antifas, your INFAC, BLM, those organizations. I think they're going to come out in droves. I think they're going to do their best to do voter intimidation. We've seen it before, where the Black Panther Party has sat outside polling places or near polling places to try to intimidate voters from voting. You're going to see a lot more of that, I think, leading up to the election, a lot more threats. And if Trump wins, yeah, I think major cities are going to burn. I truly do. So I would encourage any of our listeners that have any doubts about buying stuff to prepare. You need to really think about it that, realistically, we could go a week or so, if not more. I mean, we've seen how long, God bless Portland again, 100 days where they've had riots for 100 days in a row. Don't think it can't come to your city. Don't think, if you work in Atlanta, what are you going to do? If they're rioting down Atlanta, are you actually going to drive and go to work? You need to think about stuff like that. And I truly believe it's going to happen. If Trump wins, which I do think he will, you're going to see it. And it's going to be like something on a scale I don't think we've ever seen before. I'll go and call it now. And you're going to see violence in the streets. It's not going to be good because the problem that I have with it all is the media has made it a very polarizing topic. We've gone beyond parties at this time, and now we've polarized race. And they're trying to pit people that don't look like each other against each other, which is asinine and crazy. And yeah, I think you're going to see it, man. It's going to be a field day for those groups. You know, call it the purge, call it what you want to call it. But I think that's the kind of stuff you're going to see happen. I mean, violence in violence in Atlanta is up like 140%. Somebody told me today that the murders were up in Atlanta since protests. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's not a coincidence that these are Democrat-run cities. I mean,
No.
it goes right along with the territory, with the things that we're seeing come out of their mouths. Again, Kamala Harris, supporting Jacob Blake and being proud of him, and I think that was her exact quote. Was very proud of him. These are telltale signs of what's to come. And in the past we've had elections. We've had elections that's gone the direction that I would rather them not go. And sure. I'm sure everyone watching's had the same experience before when, and what you do is you sit back and you deal with it, and it passes over a little bit of time, and it's not such a big deal. And however, having said that, though, I will say this: in past elections, and I think in past administrations, by and large, the ground level individuals didn't feel as much direct impact as I think that they will feel nowadays. And with some of the legislation that's being pushed, and I've got a list here. I'm going to kind of go over this, and these are some points that these are just things that I've found, whether it was during the primaries for the Democrat primaries, during some of those debates when they were going at each other's throats.
Yep.
And I'll go ahead and give them the benefit of the doubt. Yes, they were in a debate, so they're going to say the ugliest thing they can about the other person, and then they're going to embrace them just like anyone does in their parties as soon as those debates are over with. However, Biden is absolutely 100% against the Second Amendment. And I'm going to back that up a little bit, because a lot of people would argue with me and say, no, that's not true. He just says he wants to take away assault weapons. Okay, well, we're going to go back to this. There is no such thing as an assault weapon that is not already illegal in the United States.
Yep.
You're not allowed to have automatic weapons unless you are a Class 3 dealer, or in some way you are vetted properly for Class 3 weapons. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you have to have an NFA stamp for it to buy anything that's, your suppressors, short barrel rifles, true assault weapons, which, cannot be produced anymore. Anyways, that's why they're so valuable.
Yeah. So however, having said that, what they're doing is a very creative way to play with words, and it's attractive to the public that doesn't know anything about firearms or why we actually have a Second Amendment. And so I'm going to lay a couple of these things out right here. So Biden, of course, is for abortion. Biden is for anything that can possibly get him elected with leftists and Democrats and whatnot. I mean, if it's a talking point, hey, man, he's cool with it. If you're Democrat, bring up something. If you don't know he's cool with it, I guarantee he'll say that he is, because he just wants to get elected. So to me, he just has no backbone. Kamala Harris is the same way. They really have no integrity because they don't have any stances that stay consistent. One of those, again, is the Second Amendment. By using terminology that says assault weapons, right? Well, then that's gonna trickle its way down into all semi-automatic weapons. We've talked about this before. That essentially gets rid of handguns and pistols as well. So we could go ahead and check one in the books that Biden is against basically your personal protection or your Second Amendment. Kamala Harris is very much the same way. On that one point alone, I don't understand how you have any form of support and any kind of large scale to back up something when you directly see the violence that they've been promoting and that they have been very hesitant to condemn. When you see that kind of violence along with a stance so solid as we're coming after your weapons, that should be a massive red flag to anyone right there, because as it stands right now, you're having a hard time protecting yourself at home. If you get attacked, police aren't coming in certain cities. And if you respond to it, you're actually being told to just forfeit your goods and let the criminals have their way. And so as the government now has proven that they're not able to protect you, and in the same breath saying they want to take away your Second Amendment rights, I just don't see how that's a recipe for a win. And I said this last week, whoever the brilliant strategist is for the Democrat Party, who thought it would be a good idea to run on raising taxes and burning buildings down and thrashing the United States of America as we know it.
Right.
Man, what a genius person that was. Would have never saw that would have backfired on him, huh?
Yep. And that's, you have these politicians out here telling you, I brought it up because you brought up assault rifles specifically. Google, for all their faults, super left-wing, super all this stuff. If you go on the Google machine, type in what does AR stand for, it'll quickly tell you it stands for Armalite Rifle. Those are the people that, guess what, made the AR-15 the first time. That's why. It's Armalite Rifle Model 15. That's what it stands for. It does not stand for assault rifle. We talk about this in our classes. It's the more you know, being able to argue your points with people that don't agree with you. And this is why educating yourself is so incredibly important, because Biden, I don't think Biden even knows what he's doing. Preston said Biden is an idiot. He's being coached this whole process. I guess as much as you can coach an Alzheimer's patient, yeah, he's being coached. Man, I tell you what, if you Google his teleprompter videos, they're entertaining and really scary. Because, man, if he's the number one, Kamala Harris is our number two. And then look at our transition again here today. Nancy Pelosi would be number three, who gets duped by set up, as she says, by a hair salon owner, and she's third in line for the nuclear codes. Oh my God! So let's hop right into that if you're good with it, James.
So you've got a senile, likely, as you stated, Alzheimer's patient that's actually running for the head office.
Yeah.
You've got a backup that is a wild left side, very radical as far as legislation goes. And then you have approaching 81-year-old third in line who, I don't even think radical and left is enough to describe. We'd have to find something further than left to try to describe her with. This is the three that you're looking at right here. These are your ringleaders. I don't think any one of the three have any kind of real business experience to speak of, and other than ripping the American public off and becoming millionaires, if not billionaires, during their time in politics.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can look it up. Let's talk about good old Nancy Pelosi. So I believe it's August 31st. She went to a salon to go get her hair done. Anybody that knows California, specifically the San Francisco area, has some of the most restrictive policies still in place. They can't, I guess, just recently, I think on the 1st, they allowed them to start getting their hair cut again, but it has to be done outside, one person at a time. How practical is that for a hair salon? Especially in a super overcrowded city like San Francisco. Nancy Pelosi decided to make herself a phone call to get her hair done at the salon, I guess, that she's been to several times. The same person that's been preaching the mask mandates, all these things, goes and gets her hair done in a city that is run by one of her relatives, which is hilarious that she's in her district, that she's responsible for knowing the law. She's the Speaker of the House. That's like a judge telling me they didn't know doing a line of cocaine off the bench was illegal. Like, how do you not know this at this point? How are you going to have an excuse? Oh, I didn't know, or I was set up. If you can get set up by a salon owner, what are you going to do with our nuclear codes? What are you going to do when some, foreign government comes and tries to set you up? If you can get set up by a middle-class, normal salon owner, I got nothing for you.
Well, they don't have to worry about being set up by the Chinese or by the Russians. They're in bed with them already. That's exactly what they want. And they prove that. As a matter of fact, I want to say it was Nancy Pelosi that said that not too long ago that Russia or maybe it was China, that China would prefer that Biden win this election. What do you care?
Right.
What do you care what China? I mean, who even puts that into their thought process? And this is really this is just a testament to just how bad it's gotten in the media, because people believe the stuff that these people say, and there is no place in American politics. There is no place in American patriotism, and there is no place in our Constitution for any one of our politicians to even mention, let alone try to pass legislation that pushes forth another country above ours, or that it shows that gives any credence to what their opinions are. And I, for them to even say, for that to even come out of one of their mouths, like what China thinks about something, is to me, it just goes to show exactly what we're dealing with and why it's going to be so important that the people on the right get out and the conservatives get out this election cycle and vote, and get your kids to vote, and you get everyone to vote. I don't care if you have to take a day off of work to do it. Everyone needs to go out and vote, because this is fastly on its way out of control. And if the right people get into office, you won't be able to get those rights back.
Yep. So Christina brought up, and actually this is one of the things I had listed to talk about, perfect transition. I know this one's going to be near and dear to your heart, James. In the same area, it's been discovered, and this is a NBC Bay Area station reporting this, San Francisco government buildings keep gyms open through the entire pandemic and keep the private ones closed. I would really like to know your thoughts on this, because if there's anybody that's more qualified to speak about this, I can't find one. Man, tell me about this. Tell me about the overhead that goes into owning a gym. You know, all these things. People think gym owners are filthy rich, which is the farthest from the truth. Tell people what a shutdown from, call it March till now, would have done for your business.
So you got to think about it like this. I mean, the way that most gyms operate is they're going to operate off of a recurring billing process from their customers, just as anything would, as your cell phone bill would, as your cable bill does. I mean, it's just something that continues on, right? And as long as you have access to the gym, you are holding up your part of the contract, or your part of the bargain. But what a lot of people don't understand is that even when you have a situation where you have a government forcing someone to close their business, they're generally stopping short. And I know someone's going to try to argue this with me at some point. They're stopping short of being able to not hold you accountable for missed rent. And I agree with that. I think that my landlord, it has just as much right to get paid by me, because they're going to be injured through an event like this, just as much as I have a right to be open, or I need to have that right to be open, so that I can continue to try to create and draw revenue for myself.
Sure.
And so when you have a situation where a government agency has told or scared the public so bad and told them, not just telling the business owner that the gym is mandated to be closed, but let's just say some of the gyms were still open. It doesn't matter anyway, because they've got the public so scared to come back that the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to stop their memberships, because they are not going to the gym anymore. And you lose the ability to say, well, we're still here providing the service that you signed up for, because you're not actually. Your doors are closed, and whether it's a government mandate or not, which I believe is completely unconstitutional.
100%.
Whether that happens or not, the citizens themselves just aren't going to come back. You don't really have good grounds to stand on. It's not good customer PR to try to go after them for the payments, or to try to make them feel like they need to continue to pay. So yes, I mean, these business owners out there, I could not imagine places where gyms are still closed from all the way back in March when this started, when supposedly the 15-day curve flattening started. This is an outrage. I mean, this is so unconstitutional, and these business owners deserve every bit of money they could possibly sue these municipalities for. I think they should win those lawsuits. As a matter of fact, I think you should file those lawsuits. Anyone who's lost their business because of this, it's completely, and it's just not constitutional. It should have never happened in the first place.
Yep, yeah, I agree. And it goes back to the whole idea of the government, no matter what party they are, doing the whole say as I do, or do as I say, not do as I say, not say as I do, right? So they are 100% all about telling you what to do and how to do it and how to live your life. And they're not going to let you make your own decisions, because the government always knows best. It's a huge problem. I mean, if you look, like, we're sitting here reading the article, and again, I'll link it so everybody has access to it. You look at it that, at least since July, if not earlier, so 2 months that they've been open, that, not only is it open for police officers and firefighters, there's the Justice Department building is open, which is bailiffs and civilian employees and all this other stuff. So they can't use the excuse that it's there for the first responders, that we're trying to keep them healthy, that we're trying to let them work out. So they can't even use that at this point, which, they're not anybody that anyone in those cities that says they care about first responders is probably lying. So they don't even have that. And it's unbelievable. And all they're doing, they've been doing all this for months, as the article says, all they've done is make the point, which you and I have known all along, that, it is safe to work out inside. It is safe to do all these things as long as you practice proper hand hygiene, sanitation processes and things like that any responsible gym owner or gym patron will do at that point. I mean, most of the gyms I go to and frequent, the people clean the stuff themselves because they take pride in where they're going. I mean, especially now in Georgia, man, we have the gym I work out at now has, air decontamination machines and all this stuff. And we haven't had some huge outbreak in the area that I live due to this gym being open. And this place is packed constantly with people. No huge outbreak. So, I mean, it's crazy. All they're doing is they're creating more Donald Trump supporters, for one, in my opinion, is what they're doing. Yeah. And for two, they're showing how they just made decisions based on opinion and not based on scientific fact. And it's created issues. And then, like Preston said, then you've got California, banning trick-or-treating this year. It is a joke. I don't know who would live there. One of my coworkers used to live there, moved here 3 years ago, so it's the best decision he ever made in his life. And he would never vote Democratic again because he's seen the difference between the two areas, and he said it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, no, Pelosi getting her hair done. That says a lot. If anyone was set up in this situation, the person who was set up was the business owner to come in. I mean, what would you do? Let's say that you own a place, you own a salon, and the governor calls you and says, "Hey, listen, man, I know we got all this stuff going on, but I really need to get this done. Is there any way we can make an exception?" And a lot of people are going to make that. They're not going to call the official who's supposed to be the authority. They're not going to call them out on it and say, "Well, wait a minute, no, I could get in trouble for this." Well, I mean, because it's the governor themselves that's saying it, or in this case, it's a major lawmaker, someone that happens to just be the Speaker of the House. If anything, it's a setup the other direction, and but it's typical deflection. I mean, there is a consistency. I'll give the Democrats this. There is definitely a consistency in what they do. They are extremely consistent about standing up for criminals. They are extremely consistent about double standards. They are extremely consistent in, and they would like to say, that President Trump has inconsistencies, and I can't find a single one. I haven't found a single inconsistency in actual policy. Now, on the other hand, when we're looking at, let's just look at what we've talked about today. Mail-in voting being potentially fraudulent. Everyone knows this. This was a Democrat talking point in past elections. And now that they feel, obviously, there is a feel from their side of the aisle that the mail-in voting will help them in some way, and it will injure Republicans in some way. That's the only reason they would be pushing it. Of course. So there's one in the tally board right there. All right, let's move down. Kamala Harris, proud of Jacob Blake, who is an alleged rapist right now, who was not supposed to be at the scene where he ended up getting shot because he was forbidden from being there. He was harassing the person that he had previously raped, and amongst other things that was going on. So number 2 right there, we're tallying this up. Number 2, Kamala Harris, extra proud of criminals. Number 3, the left openly prepping for violence and has already been doing violence in the street, and they seem to have very little repercussions for it. They definitely haven't been condemned from the left, maybe until like this morning, and that was a very light condemnation. So we all know that's just for political reasons. So that's number 3. Nancy Pelosi, double standard, gets her hair done. That's number 4. We're covering every facet of government right here, all the way from the USPS and mail-in voting all the way to the Speaker of the House. And we got one more that we're going to talk about here as well.
2 more, actually.
Really good one. This is America's favorite governor. That would be the Michigan Governor Whitmer.
Yeah. So for those of y'all that we're talking about, we got 2 things. We got this, and we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Kyle up there in Kenosha. So you have Governor Whitmer, who's obviously everybody's seen her. She's kind of in the forefront with the coronavirus lockdowns, sending the police out to these protests in front of her mansion, the governor's office, all these other things. And, them. Anyways, we've all seen it. She has been one of the biggest opponents of President Trump building the wall on the border of Mexico. She, and I quote, said, "We need to build bridges and not walls because walls don't work, James. They don't work, buddy." Yeah. And they, we need to shoot unicorn dust and, hug each other and tell everybody it's going to be okay and just let the cartels overrun America and let millions of undocumented people come in here because nothing bad could absolutely happen from that. But I digress. Megan Whitmer today, and that made it an hour almost without referring to Fox News. They actually had the best written article on this. I'm going to go to Fox News on this one. Governor Whitmer decided that while they can't even fund unemployment in Michigan right now, she needed to get some upgrades to her fence, James. $1.1 million for an 8-foot electric fence around the governor's mansion because, James, she doesn't feel safe without a wall. Your thoughts? He's speechless.
Sounds like a Democrat to me. Yeah. I'm just all over Democrats today. Listen. If you're a Democrat out there, you can't even be mad at me for this, okay? Y'all just giving me plenty of material. I mean, when does this just keeps going on and on and on? I got to know. I mean, I got 54 more things on this list about Democrats right here. It's an endless tale of some of the most ridiculous things you could possibly think of. This is fiction books aren't this good. Whitmer is going to build on taxpayer money. She's going to build a fence around her residence. To protect her from who?
That's Michael. These dangerous protesters, James. They're dangerous.
No. They've been encouraging the protesting, and they've been silencing and restricting and handcuffing the police officers on this. Who? I'm sorry. Could you tell me one more time, Eric? Who is she protecting herself from?
I think these peaceful protesters, James. That's who she's protecting.
More leftists. Oh, so she's protecting herself from Democrats.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yep, it's crazy, man. They can't. So right here, you see it. She cut $118 million from Michigan's state police budget, but spends $1.1 million, as she describes it, on routine maintenance and upgrades for a fence. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a hell of a fence for $1.1 million around the house. Apparently I'm in the wrong line of work and need to go build a fence with some electricity on it, and I get paid. The hypocrisy here is just unbelievable. It writes itself. I mean, it's crazy. Go ahead.
Democrats, man. Listen, I know why I keep calling them Democrats, because I know that any Democrat out there is going to say, no, these are far leftists. These are radicals in the party, or these are people that are further left. No. You don't get to do that.
Right.
Nope. All the white supremacists and everybody gets lumped in with Republicans. You're gonna own this one, guys. This is your Democrats. I'm gonna go back to this list one more time. Double voting and mail-in voting fraud. Right That's there, chalked up in the Democrat book. Right. Kamala Harris, proud of him. Proud of Jacob Blake, alleged rapist. She's proud of him. She doesn't seem to care about his victim, but hey, whatever. He got shot by the cops doing a bunch of crimes, so I'm very proud of him. You guys got to own that one too, Democrats. Number 3, your vice president. Your presidential candidate list. Wow, what can I say about this guy? He is just a walking bucket of laughs, and it's pitiful. It's absolutely pitiful. And sorry, I'm leaning into the camera here a little bit because I'm going over my list.
You're enthusiastic. It's okay, buddy.
Number 3, left preps for violence. Number 4, Biden is just an absolute moron. Number 5, Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done. Whitmer building a fence around her property. That's number 6. That completely goes against everything that they say about these protesters that are so peaceful. Well, guys, I want to say one thing here, and if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you're going to hear it here today straight from my lips, and I don't care what anybody thinks about it, to be honest with you. Republicans and conservatives are not out in the street burning cities down, and they're not out harassing folks. They're not out flipping people's tables over while they're trying to dine. They're not the ones out attacking federal buildings and burning stuff down and graffitiing the streets and the cities to where they look like trash dumps. And I'll tell you another thing that conservatives aren't doing, and it doesn't really have necessarily anything to do with what's going on since COVID's happened or since any of these supposed protests have been going on. Democrats have been destroying major cities for years and decades even. San Francisco, what a beautiful place, right? It's a trash dump inside the city. There's feces. There's the homeless population is so enormous. It's an actual living walk around trash bin. The entire downtown city area is. Chicago. Look at the death rates. I think there was 71 people shot this weekend. 15 or so died, maybe 20 even. I'm not sure what that exact number was. It's out of control. It's every weekend. If we look back for the past, I think 7 or 8 weekends, we could probably total that up to be somewhere around 500 shootings or so. And that's just like within a couple of months. And you could go on and on and on. People don't like for you to bring up Chicago because for whatever reason, Chicago's disqualified from like labeling that a Democrat city just because I think it's supposed to be a given that Chicago it's just so dangerous to be in Chicago that you can't even hold that one against us. Yeah, well, actually you can because it's Democrat run. I just don't see this stuff happening from the conservatives. And I think the American public is plenty smart enough to know that these things are all happening in Democrat-run areas. This violence is all happening and being pushed and prepped by Democrats. And again, I use the word Democrat for all left because that's what they like to do to the folks on the right as well.
Sure.
So there you go.
I'm sure
there's plenty of people by now.
Absolutely. And to your point, so just for those of y'all that don't know, and these are facts, you can Google this, find it anywhere you want. The top 10 homeless rates in America for cities, guess what? All led by Democrats. Top 10 homeless cities led by Democrats. That's a policy problem. They're not doing things to actually help things. Guess what? The top 10 most dangerous cities in America led by, wait for it, Democrats. So the top 25 most dangerous cities in America, most of them, I think it's like 23 out of 25 are Democrat-led cities. And have been Democrat-led, not just for a few years, but for some time. James, you know when the last time a Republican mayor was elected in D.C.?
Was there ever?
Never. And it's been never been a Republican mayor in D.C. District of Columbia has never had one. You look at Atlanta; it's been a long time since they've had a Republican mayor here, and it's a fun time. Yeah. So. And, a lot of Americans are putting blame on Trump, Christina, and not the Democrats because that's what they do. There's a 5-letter word that's not Trump that they need to be blaming a lot of this stuff for, and it's media. MEDIA, not TRUMP. They need to be blaming it on the media. And the media is causing a lot of this divisiveness. They're misreporting things. I've tried to ask myself why they do it. I don't know. Other than it's what they believe, they're reporting on personal beliefs instead of facts, I guess would be the only thing, man. And it's unfortunate because you know what? There's a lot of people I know that are good people, that are Democrats, that, are nice people, and they're so misled by the media and so misled by their party that they truly believe this stuff. And it's heartbreaking because they're good people. Like I sit down and have dinner with them. But they just truly believe the stuff, and it's unbelievable. And Eric Hogan commented, large income disparity equals Washington, D.C. Absolutely. One of the guests on here is actually a guy I came across that got arrested for murder when I was a police officer. He was arrested for murder in Washington, D.C. And he came, just like Eric said, he came from a really low-income family, was stuck in gang violence, all this stuff, and got wrapped up in a murder case when he was 16 years old and did 20 years in prison. Because he didn't know any different. And he straight told me he doesn't know any different. He's told me, and he happens to be a black guy, he's like, I don't see the big deal with what they did to all these people that have been in the news. I'm not naming anybody specific, so don't get cussed out. But he doesn't see the big deal with what the police are doing. And this is a dude that served 20 years in prison because he knows better, because he's been there. And he sees what it takes to run the streets. Al Sharpton said something that I agree with this week.
I know. Amazingly enough, I saw that report today, and I mean, obviously he's pandering to the public now to try to get votes for the Democrats, but at least he said it.
But he called them latte liberals, which I died laughing. Great terminology. Thank you for that, Al Sharpton. I'll be using it from here on out.
Basically, and real quick, in case I haven't pissed everybody off enough, I think they hold them with 2 hands like this when they drink them too.
I think it's probably right.
Yeah, 2 hand. It's like it's a Starbucks and 2-hand cup. Yeah.
You got to sip it. But so Al Sharpton basically he criticized all these idiots. He called them latte liberals. He said the people in the Hamptons that are saying all these crazy things about defund the police and take the police officers off the streets and stuff. They're not in Brooklyn. They're not in the Bronx. They're not in these places where Al Sharpton grew up. Where they see the violence. Where Al Sharpton's not an idiot. He was a pro-police dude for a long time. There's a documentary on him where he saw the dollar signs and kind of swayed another way because of this. But he was a pro-police dude when the police had, can't remember the name of the enforcers, but the civilian group of people that used to basically enforce law in New York City because the police couldn't keep up. And he was all for it until this one idiot started shooting, arbitrarily shooting young black kids. And it caused problems for obvious reasons because you can't do that and shouldn't do that. And he knows better because he knows you take the police off the streets, his neighborhoods are going to burn. His constituents are going to swing from way left to way right because safety is something that is universal to everybody. The second you remove my safety, I'm going to go look the other way for the person that's actually going to fix it. And I think a lot of our moderates and a lot of our independents are seeing that. And I think that's why, again, I'm saying it again, Trump will win by 5 to 10 points. I just think that. I could be way off, but I think he wins by landslide.
Yeah, well, and for any of those people in the Hamptons up there that are the defund the police folks, I got news for them. As soon as lawlessness takes over enough, these folks that we're speaking of, they're not going to downtown to rob anymore. Once they understand that there's not going to be any police support, they're coming to the Hamptons because they're going to come take the good stuff. And this, this is so common sense. It should all go without saying. I have a hard time believing that anyone in the public doesn't understand or grasp the concept of what is actually going on right now. But I do want to real quick, and this is staying on topic, actually. I do want to go back to one of Christina's comments right here, and I'm going to reply to that. It says, you say that, but a lot of Americans are putting the blame on Trump, not the Democrats. Okay. Now, I'm going to say, and this is my opinion on it, and I do quite a bit of research on this stuff. The media would like for you to believe that there is a large portion of the population that caters to their narrative. They would like for you to believe that there is a massive portion of the public that's anti-Trump, that's anti-Constitution, that's anti-this, anti-that. But that is not necessarily true. And I think you're being fed a narrative, and you're getting it from so many different sources. And you have a hard time even finding a source that is going to say anything contrary to that. So yes, don't be deceived. I think the big leftists, especially the radical left push, is a very, very small number. I think it's the marginal cases, but I think the media just likes to blast it out there like it's the headline thing and it's the most popular thing going.
Yeah, I agree with you, James, 100%. And for those that have watched podcasts, Christina comments a lot. She's not super right wing. Trust me, she's a very moderate person.
Yeah.
She's even said that it's very obvious we have biases and stuff, but at least we call it true. And yeah, do we, James and I, have our biases? Duh. But understand that this is a person.
I'm not biased. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
fair and balanced.
I'm perfect. Yeah, right. But
oh man.
And that's the deal. And you're absolutely right, James. You nailed it. Eric again commented, guess who got 93% of the vote in DC in 2016? The same party that's been trashing DC since, the beginning of time. It's sad, man. It's sad. And this kind of leads me into the biggest double standard that we have seen in, quite some time. And I think you're going to see some case law come out of this. I think you're going to see Facebook lose tens of millions of dollars. If you saw what happened with the kid with CNN, man.
Yeah, this is going to make the CNN lawsuit look like child's play.
I really think so, man. And I think this is, I'm going to call it now, that Kyle Rittenhouse, and I probably got our video banned for saying those words out loud, he will be a multi-millionaire when all this is done. And here's why. Let's talk about the double standards, right? The biggest double standard we've seen, I will encourage any of you, and we posted on our page, type in right now on your Facebook. Go to the search function up top. Type in Kyle, Kyle, Rittenhouse, Rittenhouse, and see if anything pops up. It won't. You can search Kyle, you can search Rattenhouse, Routenhouse, and a bunch of other stuff, but Facebook's wiped him off the map. You know why, James? Because Kyle Rittenhouse, per Facebook standards, is a mass murderer. Well, man, I would really like to share with you. Let's not yet. We're going to get into it in a second. But let's get into the definition as told by the FBI. James, what makes a mass murderer? Would you care to guess on what that number is?
Yeah, I definitely know that it's more than what they're trying to say.
It's more than 2, right? The FBI defines mass murderer as murdering 4 or more people during an event with no cooling off period, so active shooter type stuff, between murders. Yep. A mass murder typically occurs in a single location where 1 or more people kill several others. Well, okay, so let's take away our personal beliefs here. How many people did Kyle Rittenhouse kill, James?
I believe he is responsible for self-defending against 2.
2 people. 2 people. Only shot 3. Didn't even shoot 4. Shot 3. Yeah. Killed 2.
He stopped the threat.
Yeah, of course. He was defending himself. When we get to that here in a second. He stopped
the threat. The result happened to be their death. So,
don't bring a skateboard to an AR-15 fight. That's just me.
Right.
You know, and Facebook has wiped anything that supports him. You've seen his GoFundMe's get shut down. GoFundMe won't let a campaign go on for him. But guess what? Jacob Blake, accused rapist. No big deal. You can stick your finger up in a woman and tell her she smells like another dude and have a GoFundMe. But by God, don't exercise your Second Amendment right, because that, my friend, is not okay.
Hey, you can do that after you unlawfully go to their house after being charged with rape of that same person.
Sure.
I mean,
what do you mean, James? A piece of paper didn't work to keep him away from the house?
Kamala Harris approves that message.
She does. She's proud of him. And I'm, James, and to that point, I'm super shocked that a piece of paper and ink from a judge did not keep somebody away from someone's house. I'm shocked, appalled. Yeah. It's crazy. Eric Hogan, he coined a new term today, mass self-defense.
Yeah. Listen, know what, we're gonna make Eric Hogan famous on this one.
Yeah, I had a very vulgar term that I coined the other day that I'm not going to share right now. But yeah, Eric Hogan, you coined a new one, mass self-defense. It was. The scary part for me about this, James, is here's what I think we're going to see happen. Coming from a police officer's standpoint, it's going to put doubt. We talked about this in our self-defense classes, right? Knowing the law and knowing what you can do is very empowering. I'm actually an instructor for the company I work for now, and I just got done teaching a class last week to the guys about how important it is to know what you can and can't do, right, by law. Because there's this thing called a reactionary gap. We talked about it, I believe it's episode 5 with Lance, where he brought up, how many tenths of a second it takes to recognize a threat, address the threat, end the threat, and then process that the threat's down. So anyways, what this is doing is creating a bigger gap, because you're going to have a lot of these new gun owners, millions of them, right? We know that at this point there's several million brand new gun owners are going to have this doubt. Well, man, if I do what Kyle Rittenhouse did and I defend myself, even though I'm getting beat in the head with a freaking skateboard, which you get beat to death with.
In the midst of a mob.
Myself. What, bud?
In the midst of a mob attack as well.
Sure. And that's the problem. And that's the danger of what it's creating. And, they banned, Twitter banned Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyers. Banned his lawyers from Twitter. Banned him from Facebook. I'm about to share an article from his lawyer right now. For those of y'all who don't know and weren't, privy or alive when the 1996 Olympic bombings happened, there was this guy, Richard Jewell. I believe he's a security guard at the event, that was initially accused by the media of bombing Centennial Olympic Park here in Atlanta. And lo and behold, anybody that knows anything knows Eric Rudolph ultimately was the one that was responsible. But the media convicted this poor man, and this was back before Facebook, basically convicted Richard Jewell. And, before they had any evidence, it was just popular opinion. And then lo and behold, guess what? It wasn't Richard Jewell. And he even said that I'm so glad that, that social media wasn't around when Richard Jewell was around, because he thinks he would have killed himself. He doesn't think that his family could have taken it. Mark Zuckerberg, and this is where he's screwed. declared Kyle Rittenhouse to be a mass murderer.
Yeah, that's libel, and that's he's written that. I think that's libel, and that's defamation for sure, and without any evidence to support it.
Yep, and an email to Forbes. Facebook said it designated the shooting as a mass shooting, which means we will continue to remove content that praises, supports, or represents the shooting or the shooter. So don't have an opinion that goes against Facebook because you're screwed. So again, this video will probably get taken down because we're talking about it, but that's fine. Go to our YouTube channel and check it out. I'll be sure to link it. It's
but hey, listen. As long as Kamala Harris says she's proud of an alleged rapist, then Facebook's okay with that.
Yeah, they are. They're absolutely okay with it. I think you're right, Christina. I think it's going to be called Kyle Book instead of Facebook. I think he's going to own them. I mean, if you look at how many millions that the kid got from CNN, man, I'm telling you, the media is going to have to start getting this stuff right. And what I've said over and over again, and why it's so important that our listeners, post correct things, is we're all part of the media at this point, right? What you and I are doing right now is our version of reporting. It may be right, it may be wrong, depending on what circle you're in. But anybody that's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, any of these other things are part of the media. It's very important you get it right. And when you're somebody like Mark Zuckerberg, who's one of the most powerful people on the planet, he is, and you say something like that in writing, man, that's dangerous. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is probably this will be a milestone in these kind of cases, I believe. And the Nick Sandmann case was pretty significant in terms of numbers and in terms of actual money that was exchanged. And I think I mean, if you've got too much documented evidence against Facebook on this one, I thought it was pretty bold for them to come out and say that. I mean, I mean, even from a point of view of Facebook being such a left-leaning type, or at least they protect the left-leaning types, I really even thought, just for legal reasons, that they would know better than to come out and say this. And I definitely thought someone would have advised Zuckerberg not to come out and say anything like that. And I mean, it's really surprising because this is something that you can't get rid of. I mean, just as and a lot of people have said this. A lot of people that's been known as conspiracy theorists for a long time have said this, that the mass communication and the way that we have this digital world where everything is so available now is going to end up being the downfall of the people that brought it about, no matter what.
100%.
Because what happens is just at the same way that they say, oh, once you put something on Facebook, and you can never get it back because it's on the internet and it's out there forever and this can doom you. This is also going to doom those people as well. And I think you're seeing it happen to politicians already. I think we've seen it happen somewhat with the case of Maxwell and old Jeffrey there. So yeah, I mean, this is the digital media, the instant world, the instant access world will also be the downfall of these people that seem to manipulate this instant world.
Yeah, I think it will too. I actually had a discuss. It ended up being a decent discussion, but I had a discussion with somebody that was obviously on the opposite end of the spectrum that I am with my beliefs. That he was saying that words, like if you're calling somebody a racist or a mass murderer or something, doesn't equate to me being able to take any physical action against that person, right? Whether it be through scrapping, whether it be through legal means or all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. People have to understand, when you attack someone's character by calling somebody a mass murderer, you have labeled that person in front of millions of people that thing, right? We've talked about clip society and how people just read headlines. We've hit it multiple times on our podcast now, where now you put the label on the person, right? They're screwed with a large portion of the population that's extremely lazy. I've said it over and over again. I think people that don't read articles and don't look for context and things that are said are lazy. And now this person, they see him out in the street. What are they going to do to the guy? You put the man's life in danger at this point. Mm-hmm. If he gets out and he goes down the wrong street, he could be in real trouble, man.
Oh, they know exactly what they're doing. They do it on purpose.
Yep. Absolutely.
But that's what Democrats do.
It is. It is. And,
it is. I mean, it just is. Like, anybody can argue this all they want. The facts just say This is what Democrats do.
Well, in fact,
Got a whole list
and
of
to
it,
that
yeah.
point, so you could say let's hit two groups, one on the left, one on the right. You got the Proud Boys on the right, Antifa on the left. Okay.
Okay.
Me, I would never identify myself in one group or another because I think it's stupid. That's the old cop in me. But anyways, I digress. You can be on Facebook and claim to be an anti-fascist. We've shared these people's pictures before where it says, anti-fascist all the time. That's Antifa. Duh. But if you have a Proud Boy label on Facebook, you're screwed. You're banned. You're off the platform because you're racist and you're a terrorist and you're an extremist and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
These are the double standards that, like you said, I think their downfall, James, is going to be through elections. I truly do believe it. That the people are starting to wake up and they're like, wait a minute, these people are really shoving the agenda down our throat. And a large portion of America isn't dumb, whether they are, in the middle or the right or the left. They're sick of it, bro. And I think we're going to start to see a great awakening in America here soon with all this.
What was that group? What was it? Patriot Prayer or something like that?
Patriot Prayer, the guy that was killed up in Portland. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't they? I think they've banned all that from social media as well, haven't they? I know at least one of the platforms did away with all of their stuff.
Yeah, they're banned as well. You're not allowed to talk about any of that stuff as well on Facebook, which again, like I said, this video will probably get demonetized. Let's talk about that since we're on that topic. So last week, those of y'all that don't know, we covered a bunch of different topics last week. Kyle Rittenhouse was supposed to be one. We didn't cover it. But anyways, we brought up the incident in, I think it's Baltimore, where the white guy was walking down the road and he was
careful.
Hey, I'm going to call it again. Let's see if it works 2 weeks in a row, buddy. We're not going to show the video, so we should be okay. A Caucasian male was walking down the road, minding his own business, and got hit in the head by I'm sure he's a great kid. He does a lot of stuff in the community. His pigment.
I'm sure Kamala was very proud of him.
Yeah, his friends were super proud. He was hit in the head by somebody that doesn't happen to be white, and Facebook would not let you or I drop any money in advertising and try to get our message out there a little bit more because we're promoting violence. I'm pretty sure you and I condemned it when we talked last week. We didn't say, hey, go out there and start hitting people in the head with bricks. But what it comes down to is...
But we know that their real agenda was to make sure that nobody saw the violence going that direction.
Exactly. I mean, go on our Facebook page right now and scroll down and tell me how many of our articles are fact-checked, which we get into that. Yeah, that's a whole other hour one day we can get into. I think we've hit on that on the podcast already, but that's what we're running into. And that's why, I think October 1st, Facebook basically, says they're going to start banning a lot of the stuff and ban it. It's scary. And, but I think ultimately that's going to lead people to wake up. And like Eric says, if I ever say or do something wrong, take responsibility for it, AKA not my fault. And everyone involved owes me an apology. I think you're right, man. I think that's what we do. I think you rob a store and you tell them, hey, look, I really needed this stuff. And I was set up by the government for being poor, and I needed to rob your store and steal all these cell phones. I think that's a good excuse, bud.
Yeah, the police were told that they need to take into consideration the needs of the looters and the rioters before they start trying to arrest them or press charges.
Well, it was crazy, and we
if anyone supports that, if anyone supports that, then you deserve whatever you get for pushing that legislation. Okay. Whatever becomes of that, you absolutely deserve it. But I do want to go back real quick since Eric Hogan coined the term mass self-defense.
Yeah.
I was self-defending myself against Eric Hogan just an hour or so ago. He was trying to beat me up actually. So I just want to make sure that he knows that I'm taking notes.
Yep. Yeah. Nancy Pelosi's playbook. She was set up. There you go. So, man, we covered a bunch an hour today. Man, we really knocked it out today. Got a bunch of stuff done. We make sure we got everything covered. We did cover the double voting, the dangers in mail-in voting. By the way, if you haven't gathered this yet, Kamala Harris is proud of Jacob Blake and everything he's done. Great guy.
Extra proud of Jacob Blake. That's Democrats for you.
Yeah, man. Hey, there's a key here. You got the left preparing for violence. I think we're probably going to end up doing he almost died. I believe that I rolled with James too, Eric. He's a pain in the ass. So we hit that. I think we can probably cover another prepping episode here before long. That was one of our first ones. Probably not at all hurt. Nancy Pelosi caught getting her hair blown out, and she was set up. God forbid that a middle-class businesswoman set up the third in charge of this country.
Poor criminal.
No, consistent. Yeah, Democrat, and she has access to her nuke codes. That's great. Government gyms in San Francisco being open, but not the private ones. Do as I say, not as I do. There you go. You got that. Whitmer from Michigan decided she needed to spend $1.1 million on fence upgrades on her residence, despite saying that they're ineffective and there's no money for unemployment currently in Michigan. They're having issues finding the money, as they said. Facebook is going to lose their ass to Kyle Rittenhouse, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's about it, man. I just want to hear any final thoughts from you. And the audience will open it up for a couple minutes. And if we get done before your questions, I'll try to answer them offline.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask this to the audience. Maybe we'll take about 5 or 10 minutes here to wrap this up. But I'm going to ask what everyone thinks about the state of what's going on outside in America right now. If you guys have any comments or questions or thoughts on this, please try to throw them in as fast as you can here so we can cover them in this next 5 to 10 minutes. But I'm going to go back to the article where we talked about the left, or it was saying leftist groups were prepping for violent unrest if Biden loses. I want to let everybody know right now that this is a very real thing. This is something that many people have thought for decades and decades and maybe even a century could never happen in the United States. And this is absolutely happening right now. So if you guys out there are not aware of exactly what's going on in some of these cities, and these are large cities where we have a lot of this unrest, it's been going on for a long time now. I don't think it's going to quit. I really don't see a point where everybody decides this time around where everyone decides that, we're going to go back to getting along with each other, or that somehow this is going to smooth itself out. I'm here to tell you right now, this is not going to smooth itself out.
No.
You've got people claiming additional violence if the election doesn't go their way. I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is going to be something very major. It's going to be something like you've never seen before. And I think everyone needs to be preparing. Number one, you need to be training as much as possible. And I know some of that training is extremely difficult to do right now because of the lack of ammunition and things like that. And some of the other necessities that you need to do proper training or proper preparing for an event like this. But in my opinion, and I'm going to get Eric's opinion on this.
Yep.
I think there's a war coming. Of some sort. I don't think the violence is going to actually get less. I think it's going to be a lot more. And I really hope that everyone's prepared for what's potentially coming right now. I don't see this turning out well at all.
Well, I'm glad you asked my opinion. So I want to read something I found on Instagram. It was a veteran that posted it, and I think it's a very poignant point that he made. I did not serve our country, but I know a lot of people that have, and I've talked to them, and I think a lot of them do feel this way, to your point about war. So I want to read this. Everybody listen up for me. To everyone anticipating a possible civil war from all sides, let me give you a little bit of advice. Many of us served and fought in wars. When our time was done, we came back to the USA to start over and live in peace. It wasn't us who kneeled on the neck of a man until he died, and in parentheses, actually overdosed. It wasn't us who retaliated by kneeling on the neck of a toddler saying, BLM now, motherfucker. You see, war is hell. Millions of you do not quite grasp this concept. We have been to hell, lived in hell, climbed out of hell, and don't want to go back to hell. If you keep trampling on the peace we fought for, earned in love, then when that first shot gets fired, you will force us back into hell, and we will show you the brutal realities of hell. Y'all better work this shit out before we do, because I guarantee y'all are not ready for this. And that was copied and shared from another veteran. I think people need to listen to that, man. I think a lot of our warriors that served overseas, I've done a lot of charity work with these guys and understood a lot of stuff they've gone through. Man, they came back here to not go through that again. And I think if they see it coming, I think it's not going to be good for a lot of people, man. And I think you're right. I think it's coming. I think the media is doing everything they can to start it. By misreporting numbers and all these other things. Again, we could do a whole other podcast on that. It's dangerous. We truly live in a dangerous time now, man. I can't remember a time, James, where I literally would not go to Atlanta out of fear of something that might happen to my family, or having to engage somebody. Not because I'm afraid that I won't come out of it on the other side, because I know I would, but just to even having to go through it, knowing it's a real thing. Why would I put myself in that position? And I think a lot of major cities are that way. I'd be curious, RJ, if you're still listening, when's the last time you went down to Portland to go eat? to go do something that you normally used to do before this 100 days of craziness happened. It's sad, man. It's disheartening because I know, my dad fought in Vietnam. My dad died from stuff that happened to him in Vietnam, had lots of mental health issues from it. And it's very frustrating as a son of a veteran to see where our country's going and see how everything's kind of been crapped upon, and that everybody forgets that, we've had thousands of people recently die in wars for our freedom and for things you may or may not agree with, but you know what? They did it, and they were there, and they're back. And they're in society. These guys with all this training and stuff, I'm telling you, keep on, and you're not going to like what you see. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask the question, well, how come patriots aren't coming out doing something about it already? How come this? How come that? And there's a very simple answer for that. The very simple answer is that the real patriots here in the United States that believe in the Constitution and that will ultimately stand up for the Constitution, these are also law-abiding citizens, right? These aren't thugs. These aren't the criminals that are out on the street starting fires. And I guarantee you, if I went and started a fire at my neighbor's house tonight, I'd be arrested in jail in no time. And these guys seem to just be able to walk around town and start fires. And you have city officials and mayors and governors and everyone even standing up for them and telling people that they shouldn't do anything about it. And so as long as we have the rule of law and we have law-abiding citizens that are the patriots that ultimately will stand up for this, there's going to have to come a time when the law is pushed to the side. And the unfortunate thing is I think a lot of people will die in that transitional phase because the patriots of the United States aren't able to, they're not mass murderers, they're not killers, they're not proactive criminals.
No.
And so, the criminal element or, the opposing element is going to have the jump on you just because they live in a situation where they just have no rules. And it seems to be that a lot of legislators in certain cities are even backing them. So until we have that rule of law that starts to dissipate, you're not going to have the patriots walking the streets that are going out to clean everything up. Do I think it's going to get to a point where it's bad enough for the patriots to step out there and do something about it? Absolutely, I do. And I believe that'll be a short-lived process once that starts to happen. The unfortunate thing is you're going to see a lot of people that's going to be in that gray area, that's going to be in that interim area. There's going to be a lot of potential life loss, property loss, property damage. There's just going to be a lot of stuff that I think society's not used to seeing. And I think it's going to happen and happen and happen until there's actually a boiling point. And then ultimately there's an explosion point. So you guys, I'm going to stress to you again, do some training. I've been training heavily as much as I can for this. I've been putting myself around people to where I can get the training. I've been making friends in a lot of really good places, I feel like right now. And I think it's not something that's just happenstance. I don't think it's just complete random. I think these things have come about for a very, very specific reason. And I'm really, really preparing myself for this. God forbid anything should happen. But I just looking at all the signals, and Eric, I'll get your thoughts on this as well. I just don't see this panning out any other way. The criminals are bringing the lawlessness to our doorstep, and they'll burn your house down with you in it in the middle of the night and you not even know it. So I'm just telling everybody, stay prepared and do not underestimate these radical groups that are out there, pillaging and creating this violence.
Yeah, so let's hit a couple points real quick. I'll jump back on RJ's. So Christina, her husband deployed 3 times, one of the ones that thrived overseas. Now, I'm not saying he wants to war or anything, but definitely not scared of it. He and I will do what is necessary to protect our way of life. I think you have a lot of people that feel that way. I think everybody's got their point of no return where they're going to do something, and I think people are getting pushed to that right now. I don't think it's much further until people are sick of it, and you're going to start seeing, Kyle Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old kid who lived 30 minutes away from all that, and he did what he did because he felt the importance of doing what he was doing, and I can tell you right now, there's tens of thousands of combat veterans that feel the same way about the freedoms here. And if you think Kyle Rittenhouse was a problem, man, you let some of these patriots get involved and you're going to have some real problems. And I think a lot of them are going to look a lot different than you expect. And I think you're going to see hell get unleashed. And I don't think they want that. But I think that's where it's going to get to. I completely agree. There's a lot of people that are there. RJ, I did ask him. He said he lives about 30 blocks from the chaos. Normally doesn't go downtown, so he hasn't been affected by it too much, but it's much more along the lines of the fact that it is happening. I thought about going downtown to see what's going on, but honestly, I just stay away. I should go hunt some action one night. I would stay away, buddy. You're a good dude. Stay away from those idiots. Let them do what they do. Unless you're down there with a group of friends, strength in numbers, that kind of thing. I wouldn't go down there by myself. That's for sure. But man, it's funny times we live in. To James's point, train, prepare what you can. Again, I think maybe we'll do it next week. We'll do another episode on preparing for the elections, the kind of stuff we recommend to do, the stuff we've seen that's developed, tactics that have developed by the bad guys since we've started doing this podcast, because a lot has changed since episode. I think that was our second one. We're 2.5 months past that, so it's probably time, man.
Yeah, and with the. It appears right now, and I don't know if that's a facade or not, but it appears a lot of these groups, they are funded. They're obviously funded somehow, and we could do another episode on who we think's funding them and how it's getting done. But they're obviously being funded, and they're being organized somehow, at least to some degree. Yep. But the one thing that I see is, as of yet, the weaponry that they're using seems to be very simplistic stuff. And the problem, I think, with that is that sometimes it gets discredited, right? So let's talk about real quick. We'll talk about the Molotov cocktail, right? So for anyone that doesn't understand how these things can be done, this is a flammable liquid, and once this thing is thrown at you and busted and on you, you're not able to get it off of you. And I think a lot of people underestimate this, because we've all seen the videos recently of them throwing these Molotov cocktails and starting fires and doing this. But just the general sense that someone threw one of these in your direction is a direct attack, is a physical attack on you, is a deadly force physical attack on you. Absolutely. So if people don't understand the significance and how dangerous this kind of a behavior is, then you're probably leaving yourself in a very vulnerable position, and you're just not really coming to grips with exactly what's going on in reality right now. And so, again, I'll leave you with this message: just train your ass off. You guys need to be prepared for this, and you also need to be very vigilant as you walk around. Again, we're not trying to spread paranoia here, but I do think that there is a certain level of preparedness that needs to be an expectation of the general public. Just to keep yourself, keep your family safe, especially your kids. And so, make sure that you are, if you're one of those people that tune out the news, and I've been one of those people that's done that for long periods of time. I think right now is a time where you need to get a little more involved, at least stay up to date on some of the most current stuff that's going on. It could eventually be something that saves your life.
100%. I think you nailed it, man. So again, thanks to all the audience for your participation. We will again be back next week. I think, like we said, it's time to do a preparedness thing again. Hopefully we'll have some training videos up here for you soon, and me and James doing some work together. And your loyalty, everything. Thank you again to our sponsors. We'll go hit them real quick again. Title sponsor for the next couple weeks, All Weather Construction. Give Steven a call at 470-519-6988. Again, just because he lives in Georgia doesn't mean he won't come see you. He just got done doing a job in Montana. He's done work for me. He's fantastic. He pays attention to detail, high quality stuff. Got nothing bad to say. North Georgia Spine. Again, thank you for helping us donate all this stuff.
North Cobb Spine. North Cobb Spine.
North Cobb Spine, my bad. www.northcobbspine.com. And this week again, Peach State Printing. www.peachstateprinting.com. They did the banner that's behind James, and I will go ahead and give Chantel a shout out. I know she's watching right now. So for the flag behind me, Chantel at chantelcreations.com. She is also on Facebook. Look her up. She can do anything. She just did some cheerleading signs and stuff. So pretty cool work. To everybody out there, stay safe, stay involved in your communities, be a difference maker, educate yourself, have discussions with people. Don't use memes to fight back. Use numbers, use stats, use real things. Get your point across. Last word for you, James.
Hey, guys, I'm going to leave you with this. The Democrats do not have your back. You heard it here.
That's right. Hey,
all I got. James, all I got. The
James,
Democrats don't have your back.
We'll see y'all next week, guys.